Okay, fantastic. Mike, first slide, please. Good morning and welcome to today's Centurion Research Solutions webinar about how to build a winning capture plan. Mike, could you advance the first slide, please? I'm your host, Rich Thielen, General Manager here at Centurion. I appreciate everyone joining us for what will be an information-packed session. A little bit of background on Centurion. We track 25,000 plus federal government opportunities across multiple vertical markets and support all 4 of these major industry challenges. We provide leading-edge federal market research through our Business Intelligence Now product, enabling you to find more federal opportunities earlier. We offer actionable insight through our custom research and analysis offering. Our Opportunity Assessment Now tool allows you to make fact-based bid, no-bid decisions, and manage the health of your business pipeline. Finally, we offer competitive pricing analysis, training, and coaching to improve your business development process. Together, these products and services were created with one thing in mind, helping you, our clients, win more business. This is our 10th webinar in Centurion's Government Contractor Knowledge webinar series. Today's host, Mike Lisagor, is the founder of CelerityWorks and Centurion's business development subject matter expert. A former business development executive and capture manager, Mike has been helping government contractors accelerate their revenue growth for decades. We are recording today's event. An on-demand copy, as well as a copy of the slides, will be available tomorrow on Centurion's website. Finally, in consideration of your busy schedules, we will be continuing this discussion at our company LinkedIn profile right after the conclusion of today's webinar. So without further ado, Mike, take it away.
Thank you, Rich, and thanks to all of you who have taken time out of your busy schedules to join us today. First, regarding the capture plan template, since several companies registered once but are streaming the broadcast to large groups of employees, it appears that all attendees today should be receiving the capture plan template in an email later this afternoon. Unfortunately, only a few of the many government contractors I've worked with have managed to institutionalize the development of new business development capture plans. I believe a capture plan is an indispensable means of gathering and sharing important bid information. A solid capture plan informs the business development process and ensures that no key element is missing. A good capture plan focuses thinking, provides discipline, surfaces action items, raises win probability, and provides a framework for capture planning discussions. Today we'll be concentrating on the capture planning activities that should occur optimally months before the final request for proposal is released. The capture plan is best developed using Microsoft PowerPoint. This helps avoid unnecessary wordsmithing, facilitates better discussions, and keeps the meeting attendees engaged and awake. It should also be a living document. As such, it should be updated regularly to reflect the current pursuit status and to make sure important aspects of the plan aren't ignored. This diagram illustrates the 10 major factors that influence winning an opportunity. These factors form the backbone of Centurion's Opportunity Assessment Now analytic tool. Information about each of these factors is gathered during one or more of the opportunity tracking phases, described on the next slide. Opportunity identification and qualification are the 2 business development phases prior to capture. Some people would say that the most important step in the capture process is making the step 1 decision whether to even pursue an opportunity. In my experience, too few companies weed out bad sales leads early enough in the BD process. Once a pursuit decision has been made and sufficient information has been collected to qualify an opportunity, a step 2 lead qualification review is conducted. Typically, the BD professional presents the key marketing data, either using BI Now and OAM, a lead tracking system, or PowerPoint presentation slides. A decision is then made whether to transfer the responsibility of capturing the lead to the line organization with support from business development, or to engage a sales engineer, or in some smaller companies, to leave the capture responsibility with the same individual who qualified the lead. At this point, the capture team will begin to assess the opportunity and collect the remaining information necessary to develop a capture strategy and plan. The information from the qualification phase, shown here in light blue, forms the basis for the first sections of the capture plan, which is why I've shown it as continuing through the proposal submittal. Once the formal request for proposal has been released by the customer, final adjustments are made to the capture strategy, and a final bid decision review can be held. Ideally, the capture manager will be someone in the line organization who will be responsible for executing the contract. Some companies have a full-time capture manager who supports just major capture initiatives. Either way, it's a good idea to assign the members of the capture team as soon as possible. One of the key objectives of a solid capture plan is to provide senior management with an objective assessment of the company's readiness and ability to win an opportunity. Each of the 10 major factors, plus project risk and proposal readiness, should be evaluated at the end of each of the sections of the capture plan or in a table at the end of the entire plan. I'll be showing you an example of each of these factors as I walk through the sections of the capture plan. And the Centurion Capture Plan template I'll be emailing later today to all attendees follows this same format. Here is some of the basic information that you should have collected during the qualification phase, and that will inform the basis of the first factors. This data is from an Army opportunity from BI Now and can be downloaded after the webinar. In order to submit a credible bid, you need to understand the requirements that will be in the RFP as early in the process as possible. Demonstrating a clear understanding of the requirements informs the management, technical, and cost approach. Establishing the right requirements perspective is an iterative process. First, establish a baseline understanding, and then refine that perspective through additional BD activities. Key requirements are those that are the most important to a successful solution of the problem. Because not all requirements are created equal, the secret to understanding the problem is to identify which requirements are the most important to the customer and will drive a successful solution in terms of management, technical, and cost. The ideal situation is to be able to relate the key requirements to the evaluation criteria. Understanding the problem can be accomplished by demonstrating knowledge of the major explicit and implicit requirements. Explicit requirements are those listed in the draft or final RFP, and implicit requirements are those that are implied but are not clearly defined or stated in the RFP. At this point, share with management how well you believe your team understands the customer's requirements. Do you have a solid grasp, a general understanding, or do you lack familiarity with the requirements? Assign a color according to this assessment. Another key factor to explore in the capture plan is your company's prior and current relationship with the customer. In the end, it is the customer's perspective of your management, technical, and cost proposals that determines the award outcome. It is, of course, important to maintain good relationships with all individuals capable of influencing the award and outcome. It's also crucial that you understand what the customer is thinking and propose a solution that is consistent with that thinking. In the case of negative past performance, some damage control might have to be done to rebuild a positive relationship. During the procurement process, there may be several people or organizations that have the ability to influence the award. The most obvious is the individual or organization within the customer group that will receive the proposed products and services. Others, such as superiors, peers, and supporting organizations, also have the ability to affect the award. In many cases, different people will have different views on their understanding of the problem. They may also have different views on key requirements, the evaluation criteria, and the components of a successful solution. This is an example of a chart you can use in the capture plan to illustrate these key individuals and your estimate of their degree of involvement in the selection process. The purpose of positioning activities is to positively influence the customer prior to the release of the request for proposal. Actions should be taken to establish strong relationships with all key customer decision makers and influencers. Demonstrate technical insight. Get the PM and technical experts wanted by the customer. Form the right team of subcontractors. Develop and communicate a creative, workable solution to the customer's problems. And influence the statement of work with your company's discriminators through white papers, contacts, etc. It's important to make an honest assessment of how strong your company's relationship is with a target customer. It doesn't mean you might not proceed with a bid, but it does give an indication of how much ground you will have to cover in the proposal and allows you to consider actions that might still be taken to improve customer rapport. For instance, through teaming with a strong incumbent or hiring a well-liked project manager. The competitive landscape is comprised of all companies that are likely to bid on an opportunity. Identifying these companies and how you have performed against them in the past is crucial for your overall capture strategy. Meetings with existing agency contractors as well as previous bidders list and award announcements are good starting points for understanding the competitive landscape. Identify all the companies that you believe might or will bid on this opportunity. Gather any marketing intelligence that will help you understand each potential competitor's strengths and weaknesses. Sources for this information include meetings with all key industry players, assessment of contract documents such as award fee write-ups, and meetings with the customer. Use high, medium, and low, or a numerical rating to rate each company or team's relative competitive strength. Then ask yourself, how can you offset their strengths and take advantage of their weaknesses, or maybe even team with a strong competitor to eliminate the competition. So assess whether the procurement is wired for you, is an open competition, or the competition is very strong or unknown. There are, of course, many services bids that only require the contractor to provide rates for several labor categories. So you might decide that spending time analyzing the competition is not a valuable use of your company's time. However, in almost all cases, it is a very important part of the capture plan. It should also weigh heavily on the final bid decision. There are many reasons companies form a team to bid on a specific competition. Some of these are to add a large, more credible company or missing capabilities, to fill a key personnel requirement, to take a competitor off the street, to satisfy a customer's stated or unstated preference for the involvement of an incumbent company or local presence, as part of a broader strategic teaming arrangement. And finally, to fulfill a socio-economic status requirement, either for the prime contractor or as a percentage of the contract. In some cases, a joint venture is also a viable teaming arrangement. Here is a table that you can use to evaluate and communicate the teaming landscape in a capture plan. First, develop the winning criteria for subcontractor, teammate, or prime contractor selection before selecting the teammates or prime. These criteria should be based on stated and perceived customer needs as a result of reading procurement documentation and customer visits. Next, assess your own company's ability to meet the key win strategy criteria and any gaps you need to fill with teammates. Finally, evaluate each candidate company against the same criteria using high, medium, or low, or a numerical rating to determine the best fit. Once you've agreed to team with a company, make sure you develop effective statement of works for the areas to be subcontracted out. My BD coaching clients have used this type of analysis on numerous occasions to assemble winning industry teams. But avoid teaming just because it's somebody you already know. Team to win. Teaming is one of the most important aspects of a teaming capture strategy. I devoted one entire webinar to this topic and would recommend going to the Centurion website Knowledge tab to watch webinar 3 for further information, including detailed teammate selection criteria for when you are a prime or a subcontractor. Be prepared to explain in your capture plan why the teammates were selected. The key elements of each teaming agreement should also be presented during a capture review to obtain management approval. Themes make inferior approaches obvious, so they will drive you to a more superior approach in your proposal. They also force you to relate features to benefits. So at some point, preferably before RFP release, you should conduct a theming and discriminator session to answer the question, why should the government select you? And even though it can take time, substantiate your themes as opposed to just making generic claims. A discriminator is a theme that no other competitor can claim. It's non-trivial in the customer's eyes. The approach should be unique to you. It should be believable and easily defendable and not possible for your competitors. If you can't or don't discriminate yourself in the proposal, then why submit it? The best themes focus on how you can help the customer. Pictured here for your future use are several high-level and technical themes that might stimulate your thinking in a theming session. So based on the information collected, how well does your team fulfill the customer's key requirements? Are there any significant weaknesses? In best value procurements, management capabilities and approach is often one of the two highest weighted evaluation criteria. The management approach is your company's ability to plan, implement, control, measure, and report on the required work. An effective management approach should clearly communicate that the selected approach is relevant to the customer's needs. The effectiveness of this approach should have been proven on programs similar to the requirement of this opportunity. Data like the customer's organizational and reporting structure, as well as their major program management systems, tools, and processes, should inform your approach to how you will propose managing the project and project staff. This information should be summarized in the capture plan. Most services procurements require a certain number of key personnel, or at the least require you to identify who you believe the key personnel should be. It might also be one of the key evaluation criteria, so careful attention should be given to the identification of these individuals and making sure they have strong prior management experience on projects of similar size and scope. Bidders are also required to prove their ability to staff the project. Your staffing strategy may be to hire the incumbent contractor staff or to staff a project with your own skilled employees from other projects. It can be quite helpful to involve someone from recruiting and human resources in the discussions for this factor. The risk to your company of contract type, special RFP provisions, and any financial performance risks should be evaluated and presented at the capture review. Identify a mitigation strategy for each of the major management risks that might have a significant impact on project schedule, work content, or cost. Just a reminder that a discriminator is a substantiated theme that no other competitor can claim. The key question to be answered is, how strong is your management approach and capability? Does your team have the necessary management controls and metrics for this type of contract? Your team's approach to performing this project should be summarized in this section. This technical approach should satisfy the customer's technical requirements. The effectiveness of this approach should be related to past performance on programs similar to the requirements of this procurement. Provide a high-level view of the major technical requirements. This can be accomplished as a bulletized list, a table, a flow diagram, or with a work breakdown structure diagram. The technical approach should clearly identify necessary tasks and should be used to develop schedules, cost estimates, skill sets, and project risks. Here are two simple examples of a possible work breakdown structure, or WBS, for the development of 3 training modules. The WBS on the left is arranged by functional phase: plan, implement, accept, while the second WBS has been structured around each of the 3 training modules. If possible, a project schedule should be developed prior to award. It should be consistent with RFP requirements and the major elements of the management and technical approach. It can help management to visualize the key tasks and deliverables. Most projects have some degree of infrastructure requirements that may or may not impact pricing. Describe the necessary labor categories and whether these will be current employees or new hires. Also, are there any wage determination requirements to be considered? Identify the major technical risks and a brief description of your mitigation strategy. Substantiated technical themes and discriminators should be communicated to illustrate the relative strength of your team's offerings. Assess your team's ability to meet the technical requirements. Are your approach, staff, and methodologies unique, merely acceptable, or weak in one or more areas? There are at least two elements of past performance. One is whether your company or team has the required number of project citations that are similar in work type and scope. The second is the quality of performance on these contracts. So first describe the major past performance requirements that fit this opportunity, and then identify your team's relevant project references. This can be done as bullets or in a table. List any past performance that might receive negative client performance feedback. Describe the steps to be taken to mitigate these poor references prior to proposal submittal. Now assess your team's past performance in terms of the quantity and quality of required past performance references. Does your past performance references substantiate your team's ability to perform on the contract? Understanding the funding status of the opportunity is one of the most often ignored but critical bid factors. Identify the funding source, whether the project is in the budget and stable. Try to ascertain what the customer has determined the project should cost and their target budget. Evaluate your understanding of the project's funding. Do you have the necessary information? This will help to identify additional actions necessary to support your pricing activities. The federal government has entered an extreme phase of cost competitiveness where a majority of bids are now being awarded on the basis of lowest price, technically acceptable. This means that you need to have competitive pricing information readily available in order to develop winning pricing strategies. Knowing what the agency and individual stakeholders' award tendencies are and how favorably they view your company are essential considerations in your decision to bid. Who are their favorite contractors? How sensitive are they to price? And how strongly do they feel about small business involvement in the acquisition? So considering the customer's preferences, what are the chances your team will be viewed favorably? The response to this question is usually a key input into the bid, no bid decision discussion. Determining the price your company needs to bid to win is, of course, a critical component of the capture plan. This activity should begin where possible well before the RFP release. The pricing complexity varies greatly between products, software, hardware, and services contracts. The opportunity lead, whether a BD professional or a capture manager, along with the pricing lead's assistants, should gather competitive pricing information as well as prior agency award history. On labor contracts, labor category information is a key component of your capture strategy. Some of this information can be found in Centurion's BI Now and Freedom of Information requests for previous contracts and proposals. It can also be inferred from company-published GSA schedule rates, keeping in mind that these are often discounted further. Centurion pricing experts can help with your pricing strategy. In general, there are two major agency pricing evaluation models. The first is to select the lowest price bidder that is technically acceptable. The second is to select the bidder that provides the most value to the customer at a reasonable price. For the purposes of the capture plan, identify the customer's stated or most likely proposal evaluation strategy, realizing that the stated preference may not end up matching reality. Try to identify the customer's typical award criteria for the specific type of contract you're interested in bidding. What is the relative importance of price? Clearly, this information will help you develop the highest possible score and capture strategy and proposal. Describe the key financial elements of your pricing approach. This bid's pricing strategy often evolves over time as teaming arrangements are solidified and further competitive information is gathered. Each version of the capture plan should further refine this strategy. Describe the likely competitive range. By understanding where your company falls in the competitive range as it relates to the customer's probable should cost and the likely competitors, you can determine if you should even bid the job. And if so, what changes or actions you might need to make to your capture strategy, including staffing mix, to achieve your target price. If the scenario shown here was a best value procurement, then your company's position might be sufficient, assuming you have outstanding key personnel, client relations, and past performance. On the other hand, the delta between your price and the company A and B prices probably wouldn't allow the government to award you the contract if this was a lowest price, technically acceptable procurement. There are, of course, much more sophisticated pricing tools and methodologies, but for many smaller contracts, even a simple cost competitive exercise like this can make a big difference. For a more detailed treatment of competitive pricing, you can download a pricing white paper from our website, Knowledge Center. So can you meet or exceed your pricing objective, get close, or is the target price clearly out of reach? Your team's pricing competitiveness will and should be a key driver in the bid-no-bid decision deliberations. Assessing the execution risk and potential profitability of bids warrants more discussion than can be covered in a short webinar. In my experience, though, few companies have a clear understanding of the kind of work they are targeting. Does your company's cost structure support low-margin services tasks? Or do you do enterprise architecture consulting that demands higher rates? Take the time to develop company pricing guidelines to ensure a thorough analysis of the technical cost, schedule, and profit risk for each bid. Key proposal milestones should, of course, be presented in the capture plan. And the capture plan should also identify the proposal resources, if any, that have been assigned to respond to the request for proposal. Most companies allocate a certain amount of their budget for new business pursuits. The bid and proposal request should identify the budget required to produce a winning proposal. This estimate should be consistent with the proposal team identified on the previous slide, understanding that some proposal resources, like recruiting or pricing, might already be charging to an indirect account. Your company may have a standard form that you can use to communicate bid and proposal requirements. The last question in the capture plan is often the difference between winning and losing. Yet there are many executives who make the decision to respond to an RFP without ever questioning whether the company has resources and time to put together a winning or even compliant proposal. The best capture strategy is worthless without the resources necessary to reflect it in a winning proposal. Each of the assessment criteria color ratings should be summarized here. In this example, serious weaknesses exist in an understanding of the competitive landscape and with past performance. Centurion's OAM, Software as a Solution, a very complex but user-friendly analytical bid assessment tool, will result in a much more accurate assessment of each of these factors. Now would be a good time to communicate to management the capture team's estimate of win probability based on the opportunity assessment summary and the competitive field. There are a variety of ways to calculate the odds of winning a competition. This table describes some very general win probability guidelines for each BD phase. You can modify it to fit your previous company's sales experience. Centurion's OEM tool more accurately calculates the probability of win for you. You should take into account the risk that the government will fund and follow through with the procurement, as well as your company's competitive position. The more data that is collected, the more accurate your win probability estimates will be. Conservative probability estimates will help your organization avoid inflated sales and revenue projections. Along with the capture plan on the next slide, this is the action plan. This is the last section of your capture plan. A group discussion should be facilitated to determine whether the yellow and red factors can be improved, and if so, what actions need to be taken by whom and when. This final capture plan slide should identify the major actions necessary to either arrive at a bid decision or to raise a red or yellow factor to green. This action plan should be maintained by the capture manager and presented at each capture review. In these highly competitive times, more and more companies are relying on Centurion's products and services to enhance every phase of their business development process. I hope you can join me for our next Government Contractor Knowledge webinar on Tuesday, March 19th, when I'll discuss what every manager should know about business development. That's project managers and line managers. The first 300 to register and attend will receive a detailed business development fundamentals checklist. Feel free to email one of the individuals shown on this slide for further information. A copy of today's slides will be made available at the web address listed here, and a recording of this session will be uploaded by tomorrow. I'll be sending out an email later today with the template, and tomorrow to all attendees with the web links, a registration link for the next webinar, and the Capture PowerPoint template. Based on today's large attendance, I'd again recommend registering early. I'll leave this slide up for the next 5 minutes. And until March 19th, I thank you for your attention and happy hunting.
Mike, thank you so much for what was an information-packed session, and thank you to all of those that attended today. We look forward to seeing you all again on March 19th. As Mike mentioned, we will leave this up. If you'd like to join us on the LinkedIn discussion, we'll see you there. Thank you again, and we will hopefully see or speak to everyone again in the near future.